Hi everybody. I've been working through the earlier matches of the Horde Autumn Open of 2025, and today I'm going to look at my match with Horde Supervisor, who is a reasonable player. I would put him around maybe 2400 in terms of a Leech's Horde Blitz rating. But anyway, he's a reasonable player, and I will be reviewing the games from my perspective. I say that because normally I review from White's perspective, but these are my games, so I'll think on my own perspective. I already looked at these games, so I'll try to go through them quickly. That will also motivate me to continue the series because these analyses take a lot of work in order to present, because it's one thing to have thoughts and it's another thing to articulate them. Alright, so in the first game, I have black, and we have e5, e6, and h5. And for those of you who don't know, h5 is not a blunder. It's one of the critical systems for white. It has some of its unique advantages, and there are kind of 4 critical moves in this position, maybe 5. So the main moves are e4 and f6. Those can be considered the 2 main lines. Additionally, you have f takes e6, which is a very dangerous sideline, and then h5, and then you could argue for d5 as well. I mean, d5 is considered a lower tier opening for white, you could say, but it's definitely critical. So after h5, ef5, gf5, it's true that white's kingside is a little bit weak, and that's why I strike immediately with f6. Both f6 and d6 are good moves. f6 is striking immediately, and then d6 is a natural move in the center. After d6, there would be e4, de5, de5, and then f6. So you're playing f6 either way if you're going into the main line. But f6 immediately is interesting. Here h4 is played. There are kind of 2 critical moves for white. One is h4 and one is gf6. gf6 is kind of the normal move because after h4, g6, white should take gf6 anyway. In the game, Horde Supervisor played g4, which is a mistake. And it's also a mysterious move. I'm not sure what is the thought process behind playing this move, because after gf5, I mean, the king side is really, really weak. I have many ways to attack it. One way is with h6, one would be bishop e7. I assume d6 is also very strong. I go bishop e7. But let's just go back a couple moves before we look at the game. So here, after gf6, black has 2 ideas that black can choose from. One is gf5 and one is knight f6. And after knight f6, ef6, queen f6, the thing that you should know for white is that you want to gambit these pawns. You don't want to take on g6 because then you open the h-file. If you take on g6 like this, then there will be bishop e7, bishop takes h4, rook h4. And the fact that the rook is on the 4th rank and the queen can get behind the rook means that black can infiltrate the king side by force. There's no stopping rook h2. And the fact that white is underdeveloped in the center and the queen side means that, in addition to black's strong defense, means that the infiltration is easily winning for black here. So if you have white in this position, what you should play is a move like e4, and then gf5, and then here just e5 and e5. And it's, objectively winning for black, but that's not saying much because pretty much every single opening that white can try in the start position is objectively winning for black. And it's not like black has like one forced win. It's like there's multiple wins. There's multiple ways for black to force a win with perfect play. It's just that some are like less trivial than others. And when we say that an opening is critical, like how I said this is critical, what we mean by critical is that uh, the refutation is not trivial at all, and it requires like extreme accuracy throughout the entire game. So let's go back to the game. Yeah, g4 is the most important mistake in this game. Then gf5, bishop e7. Uh, the computer says that bishop e7 is an inaccuracy, but I don't think it is. I think I can force a breakthrough. So after g4, I just take 3 times on g5. I'm threatening queen h4, forcing g3. And now I have this knight h6 move just on time that I threaten g4 and f5, and there's nothing white can do about it. White goes for h4 because he wants to play h3, but I just take on f5. And problem for white is that this knight cannot be taken. If he takes a knight, which he did in the game, well, that makes my job easier because I can actually force a breakthrough. I just play queen f7, and he has to allow me to capture one of these two pawns. Like, he went e4, and then I went queen h5, and then I have a simple plan with rook f8, rook takes f5, and then I break through with queen f5, or if he plays g4, then I go queen f4, queen h2, and I break through that way. If he plays g4 in this position, like one move back, he's playing g4 here, well, I think the simplest refutation is going to be d6, and we threaten bishop takes f5, so you might expect something like e4, but here we can take, and play, I guess queen e7 is a simple solution, threatening both of these pawns, and if g5, then queen e5 breaks through, plus it takes a center pawn, which is always nice. And if f6, then, well, we just take here, and then we get through that way, and white has no counterplay. So, what he has to do instead is like play e4 here, but then I can take here on h4, and he still cannot take. If he takes, then, I mean, I think, oh, I just have queen f8, queen f4, queen h2. So that's simple. So he has to play something like a5, like a non-committal move that slightly strengthens his position, but then, let's see, I think I just have queen f8 here, threatening knight f3, forcing f4, and then I can just play in the center with d6. And I mean, if he takes an a4, then I think, what is king f7? I don't understand that move. I don't know why that move was there. I guess it's a weird stockfish move. But yeah, what do I have here? I was thinking about knight g6 actually, because if he takes, then there's no h4 because we take on g4. So knight g6 is an interesting idea, forcing e3 here. Yeah, we can take, sure. And something like this. I mean, it's eventually going to be winning for black. In this case, we will take on h5 with the knight. So gf5 is kind of the second and last important mistake in the game, I would say, because it's true that after e4 that black is still winning by force, but it's harder. I mean, black has to work harder, I guess. White can definitely try to be tricky here. In the game, we had queen f7, queen h5, rook f8, and after f6, I just take this pawn for free. and it's very simple. If he plays e3, then I'll play d6, and my general idea is like bishop h3, queen h5, bishop f1. If white plays e2, then bishop takes e2, queen takes e2, and I break through that way. Plus, I also keep both of my rooks, which is really nice for defending the position. And then at the right time, so for example, if he plays c6, then I'll take and then take here. And let's say he goes e2, well, I'll take here. And then let's say b5, well, I'll go queen h5. We can play against the engine, I guess, but I don't want to go too deep into it. I mean, here, like I was thinking I would sacrifice the knight and just castle. Or I can wait to castle at the right time. And then here's a good time to castle. It's very safe and solid for black. Okay, I would take here first, of course, but the idea is the same. And here I'll take once and then castle. If he takes with the c-pawn, then I can take here, but I can also castle because I take here on d6 and play king c7. Alright, I think we can move on to the next game. So here I'm white. We have e5, d6. d6 is not an inaccuracy. It's one of the critical moves. h5, g6. Now g6, on the other hand, is definitely worthy of being called an inaccuracy. It's like a really soft move. Obviously, supervisor wants to steer out of theory and kind of surprise me a little bit. But this move is not doing much. I can just take twice and take once here, I guess, and then looks like a very good game for white because there's no attack on the king side, and I have kind of a nice position in the center. But anyway, I took here hg6, and then he plays bishop f5, and this is like a positional blunder. I mean, not only do I win material, but it's just a very dominant position for white because, I mean, there's like this weakness on e6, and if he plays e6, then I have a really strong pawn on f6. So black is like oppressed, so to speak. And then for the rest of the game, I just play natural developing moves. I like to put a pawn on h2 instead of h3 because sometimes the pawn on h2 can support like a g4, g3 idea, like in the future, not now, more like 10 moves later. Anyway, this position is so oppressive that black has to just hold things together, but I just kind of steamroll with my material advantage, with my positional assets, and it's all because he play. Okay, you see, I play g4, g3. I don't need this move. Like, I can win however I want, but g4 is a nice resource with the pawn on h2. The reason I got such a good position is because of his mistake on move 3 with bishop takes f5. I mean, that's just like serious blunder. But yeah, after some point he resigns. Here he resigns, and I think we can move on to the next game. So here I'm black. It's giving me the wrong color each time, which is kind of funny. We have a5, a6. Now a6 is a rare move, but I think it's pretty good because any move that's not b6 will run into like a takes b5, and then black can add massive pressure to the c5 and a5 points for a strong attack on the queen side. So a5, a6, h5. Yeah, h5 is not that good because I take on b5, and not only do I take on b5, but he takes with c pawn, and now he is down to 4 c pawns instead of 5 c pawns. It would be better to play like a4, and then after a b5 take with the a pawn. It's better to have 5 c pawns and 3 a pawns as opposed to 4 on each file. Like the worst pawns are like the edge pawns because they're only defended once anyway, and they don't have as much influence in the center. But anyway, I think the best move for white here is going to be b6. So I'm not sure why h5 was played, but I would consider it kind of a mistake unless you have something prepared. ab5, cb5, e6. And my general strategy is to put pressure on c5 and a5. I start with e6 so that when I take and play d6, I'll have pressure with the pawn and bishop, and then the rook. Because here, when I play d6, maybe white can already take it, and then I'm not able to recapture with the bishop. So I start with e6, and if white takes on e6, I'll take with the f pawn so that I can play d6. And then if he takes on d6, I'll take with the bishop. So e6, h4, ef5, ef5, d6. Here he takes on d6, and then I take with the bishop. That way I can play like c6, bishop c7, or it's not so much about playing bishop c7, it's more about having a pawn on c7 so that I can play c6 in the future, or so that I can play b6 as well. So e4, b6. b6 is probably not a mistake. It could be better to play something else like c6, but anyway. b6, here a6 is definitely one of the important mistakes by Horde Supervisor. I'm not sure if maybe he missed that after knight takes a6 and b takes a6, I have this move b5, which is very strong because I annex control of the a4 square and play like bishop d7, c6. And if he pushes a pawn to a5 somehow, we do have this bishop c7 resource if we need it. However, it's better to start with c6, by the way, if we go and move back, because after a4, cb5, ab5, knight a6, ba6, b5, if he plays e5, then we have bishop c7. And that's important because it stops like the plan where the pawn gets to a4 and a5, because we can just sacrifice our bishop and take, and so forth. So, yeah, maybe slight inaccuracy to take immediately, but okay. It's still good for black. Here he has the move e5. And it's important to play that move so that I drop my bishop back, and then he can play a4 to try to play a5. That could be a little annoying for me. Probably the best I can do is bishop e7 so that one day I can play bishop d8. But at least this move, like, it's still a winning position for black, but at least it forces me to think, maybe I have this move c6, and then if he takes, then I take here. And now he doesn't have time for like a4, a5. That could be one way to play for black. A simple way that forces a win. I'm just trying to infiltrate the queen side in general. So b5, c4, well after c4, like, it's just completely losing. Um, I mean, in this position, I think the thing that you need to know for white is that some natural moves are better than other natural moves. I mean, yeah, e5 is definitely the best try for white. Anyway, c4, c6, and here I just infiltrate the queen side very smoothly. And here I find a takes b3, which is nice because after the rook is taken, I have queen a6, and I threaten both queen d3 and pawn takes. And here it's just game over. And he resigns soon enough. Here he resigns. By the way, on move 19, king d8, it's a nice resource because it avoids like forks on the knight and king, and therefore it liberates this rook on h8. So it kind of strengthens black's defenses on the king side. And also, the king can sometimes monitor some counterattack on the queen side if white plays there. Alright, so we can move on to the next game. Here I'm white. Yeah, it's giving me the wrong color every single time. So here we made a draw, so I did not win this game, but I was very close. It's d5 e6, f e6. Not a blunder, just one of the critical options. And he plays f e6, which is interesting because if I take on e6, then he has an interesting move, which is d6. It's a very aggressive way to play for black. The standard way to recapture is with d takes e6, and then if white takes with d6, which I was planning on doing, then black has bishop takes e6, and this is pretty annoying for white, actually. So in the game, f e6, f e6, d e6, d e6. Now after d e6, like, I got what I wanted, which is like a fortress position where black has problems. h5, g6, h6, knight h6, gh and bishop h6, h4, c6. So I play h4 here. It's an important move because I want to play h5 the next move if black threatens h5. So h4, c6, d4. I don't have to hurry with h5 because the bishop is on h6, but if he moves his bishop back to f8 or to g7, then I will play h5. So I just play natural move d4, a6, d3. Now after bishop f8, he threatens h5, and therefore I play h5 myself. This helps me to keep slight control over the light squares. It's a very important idea. By the way, if black plays queen d7 and queen f7 to kind of attack this pawn on h5, then oftentimes white can give up this pawn on h5 and argue that it increases some slight control over the light squares like on f5, right? So h5, bishop e7. Well, this move, I don't think it's doing anything. In fact, it's allowing me to play h6 in the future. I mean, I wouldn't play it now, but I can definitely play it at some point. d2, king f7, e5, bishop d7, threatening b5. So I just take. One of the important details about this opening is that white doesn't have a pawn on a5, and this is really important because it means that white can play b takes c6 followed by b5. Sometimes even if you're playing b5 to sacrifice a pawn, it actually still works. Like you can play b5 as a sacrifice, or you can sometimes play d5 as a sacrifice and then push for b5 later. But anyway, it's really important that the pawn is not on a5 but is on a4. That's the whole reason why this fortress is actually not as good for black as you might think, is all because this pawn is tucked back on a4. Extremely important. Extremely instructive. e5, bishop d7, b takes. Yeah, definitely much better to take as opposed to like b6, because b6 defeats the purpose of this opening for white, where I want to take on c6 and someday play b5 in the future. e4 natural, bishop c8, e3 bishop b7, so he's worried about d5, I guess. e2 rook a7, f5. Yeah, so he should have kept the bishop on like c8. As a general rule, the minor pieces should be like on the back rank squares, like this bishop should be on f8 actually, because it actually stops h6 from white, which could get very, very dangerous for black. So having these bishops out is kind of wrong. Like in these fortress positions, the pieces should mostly be tucked in the back rank. So rook a7, f5, queen d7. Yeah, I mean, I have a nice idea with d5 here, and he cannot take with the e-pawn because I have this fork with e6. So this move d5 is very dangerous. But I take here with fe6, which is like good enough. I think both moves are going to be very strong for white. fe6, queen e6, h3, g5. Well, after g5, it's basically over. This is another important mistake by Horde Supervisor, because I seize control of the entire position, right? I mean, the fact that black doesn't have an infiltration means that black has to try to hold things together. Black has to try to control the position. But g5 just gives up control. It just gives up more and more control. Like, this pawn is further advanced, which means that it weakens like the squares in front of it, basically. f4 take with a g-pawn. Both ways are good. h6, g3. And then we can just fast forward because, okay, he takes on e5, but it's no problem for me. Okay, he sacrifices the bishop. I'm quite desperate. I'm just steamrolling. Another desperate bishop sacrifice. And another desperate sacrifice. But somehow he still manages to draw the game because I made some very elementary mistakes. Okay, I allow queen h4. I don't need to do that, but that's okay. I'm still winning. Okay, d6 is simpler, but still winning. Okay, d6 again, the simplest, playing for d7 and c7. But I'm still winning. And now b4 is a key blunder. So why I played b4? Well, I think I must have misevaluated this position. Or maybe I didn't see that I had time for f4, f5 to keep the strong pawn chain. Maybe I just missed that f4, f5 was coming on time. That's probably why I didn't play this way. But this would be a very strong position for white. There's nothing black can really do, actually. After b4, queen d5, c7. Well, queen a2 is wrong because he needs to prevent b6, and queen e6 prevents b6 because b6 runs into queen e6. Excuse me, queen c6. And then that's part of the recipe for winning this position as black. So queen a2 is wrong in that sense. So I play b6, he goes back, and then, well, now I can find time to protect this pawn on e6. And so my position is good again. After h3, I'm kind of losing in a way that I would consider unlucky, because I feel that in most permutations of this position that white is winning, but h3 is one of those few permutations that are losing for white. And the reason why is because, well, black can play king f6, I guess. I mean, if h4, yeah, king f6. If g5, then take. If h6, then take. And if h7, then king back, I think. Apparently h3. If g7, h3. Yeah, he's making a second queen, basically. So this king f6 move saves black in this position. So I just needed to go straight away with g5. And that way, well, for one thing, this pawn is actually not going anywhere because these pawns are still here. And for another thing, I think I have e7 in this case, although he might have king f6. So maybe I can consider like h6. I don't know. I'm not sure what the engine wants. So it doesn't want e7. It wants g4, which is a solid move. It makes a lot of sense. Maybe one day I can try to play h4 and g5 and push for f6. But anyway. Okay, c4 is a nice idea here. He can't take it, so he has to watch this diagonal. After b5, queen here. Yeah, now I play h4. And then there is just this g5, f6 idea. It's very strong. Threatening h7 here, so it's just completely winning for white. So yeah, h3 is just allowing kind of unique defense with king f6. Anyway, c4 also kind of falling into the main mistake of the last move. And here, like I thought, before this rook sacrifice, like I thought white was doing okay because these pawns on the a file can create some stalemating opportunities, and I thought it was really hard for black to get out of that. But I guess the engine sees a win for black, which is okay. It's not so important for this game because I allowed black too much earlier. Rook c7 makes my position good again because, I guess because the queen is already doing everything for the B and C file, so we don't really need to give up this rook. This rook can find a new job that nobody else is doing, like protecting the back rank or just maybe controlling a certain file. So yeah, rook c7 is definitely just fundamentally flawed. And then, yeah, here I can play e7 at some point. Like here I can play it right now, I think, because if queen takes, then there's b6. And if king takes, then g5 is always the idea. It's important that when I play e7, that the queen is on c7, because if the queen is on c8, then e7, king takes e7, g5 runs into like a queen f5 because the queen's on c8, and that's very important. Here the engine, it was recommending g5, but it changes its mind because it sees that g5 should be losing. But now it sees this h6 move, but it still looks probably winning for black unless the engine is missing like a stalemate trick for white. Anyway, kind of the final mistake, well, not final, but one of the mistakes with g5 here, because I was going to take here, I think, but then somehow the king has time to run back. But we were in time trouble, so it's not too important, I believe. But another point is that maybe I should move a2 before I move the c pawn, therefore playing c3 is kind of inaccurate, because after a2, I can kind of figure out where I want the queen to be on c7 or c8, and then I can play c2 or c3. So in this case, I would play c2, so that after queen c8, I can play c3, queen e7, e7. Without the queen on c8, there's no queen takes f5 resource, so this should be winning for white. But I went for c3 and then a2, which is inaccurate. But it turns out that I have this move b6, which is like it's a move that would be very, very scary looking to play. It looks like you're giving up like this really strong pawn and everything. But it turns out that this time I have like a breakthrough, because I have g7 and this pawn on e6 obstructs king f7. So it's very concrete. If h7, I guess I'm still winning because of this pawn, right? And then, yeah, this queen cannot control both these pawns and the pawn island. After g5, take, yeah, I'm winning again. But then I blunder c7. And the only explanation I can think of is that I had severe time trouble. Like I probably forgot that I had this pawn here, maybe. Because obviously I should play e7. I mean, after c7, queen e6, I mean, he controls with queen c6, and it's just over. Even queen c8 works for him in this case, but I would just play queen c6. It's by far the simplest. But queen c8, c6, c5, c4, b7, and he has a clear path to victory with just taking here. Or, I'm sorry, I meant taking here and then taking here. Because in the game he played queen takes a3, and it's just a blunder. Because I get this queen, and if he goes after the c-pawn, then I have a4. So that would be a draw by stalemate. But queen a3, he played that too fast because he has 35 seconds apparently. So it's a very important mistake actually. But we can move on to the next game. I think that's going to be the longest game by far with the most mistakes for both sides. It's kind of it's a nightmare to analyze that game actually, because a lot of the mistakes like would almost never happen if we were both in good form. Wrong color again. Wow. So a5 d6, h5 dc5. So I'm black. dc5 e6, h4 b6. b6 is a natural move because with the move h4 he strengthens the king's side, but he doesn't strengthen the queen's side. Plus there's no pawn on d4 to cover c5. So after h4, like b6 is definitely a good move. A, B, C, B. I play CB6, but I think both captures are good. My idea with CB6 is that if he plays C6, then I have an idea like A6, A4, AB5, AB5, and I wanted to say knight C6, BC6, B5, something like this, but maybe I don't really have it in this case, but it still looks interesting. This B5 idea is usually strong in similar positions, but maybe not here. But here I can just play like knight e7 or queen c7, sure, but in the game it was cb6, a6. Yeah, a6 is a nice move here. b7 is quite natural. Bishop b7, a4, ab5, cb5, ef5. I'm not sure why he went for cb5. I mean, I would much rather play ab5 and keep more c pawns on the board. I mean, that's what's natural to me. And then if I go knight d7, then I think he has some ideas like d4, knight b6, c5, knight a4, c4, with some complications, because that was not possible if he took here with a c pawn instead, I guess. The cb5, ef5, gf5, knight d7, a3, knight b6, a5. I just want to provoke a5 so that I can go rook a5 at some point, or maybe to go knight d6 and weaken these pawns on b4 and b5. c4, knight d6, c3, bishop c8, c2, knight b7, and yeah, I think a6 is kind of necessary, because after a4, I think rook a5 is nice. So I threaten this. So after d4, I have knight d6, d3, and knight b5, and bishop d7. And I saw all this during the game because I saw he can't play c4. And if he plays a2, then I think I was gonna take and play bishop a3. But actually, it's just better to play bishop a3 immediately. I mean, now he's just losing. So he doesn't take my rook. I'm not sure if he saw all that, or maybe he just trusted me too much. That's a really bad habit. Like, you should never trust your opponent. Like, one of the top qualities of an elite player is that their plans are so direct, so one-dimensional, so forced, so like, it's just like accomplishing one thing at a time. Uh, that's important because if you trusted your opponent too much, then your plans will not look like that. If you trust your opponent too much, then your plans will look like you're trying to do too many things at once, or you're trying to mix plans, and that's just really bad. So yeah, it's a very bad habit to trust your opponent too much. If he saw no problem with taking my rook, then in this position, if he saw no problem with taking the rook, then he should take it, just to not fall victim to trusting the opponent. So a3, bishop d7, and here I just break through eventually. I don't really need to play these moves. These moves are kind of bad for me because they actually give him some squares to attack the king side later. I mean, I guess h6 is fine, but okay, I don't know. Anyway, we have this position, and well, a5 just allows me to go knight b7, but I actually go for rook a4, I guess. Sorry, rook a5. Like here I have knight c4, and then a forced breakthrough, because c4 and a3, e5, queen a3, and during the game I was really scared for black. Like I thought white could maybe create some counterplay, because these pawns just felt so weakening, and it's like I might need to play king d8, king c7 to watch over the pawns on the queen side, which makes weakening the king side really bad for me. But I guess objectively I'm just winning. Yeah, I wasted time with this knight move. I don't know why. Definitely shouldn't do that. But I'm probably still like never losing. I lose a knight, but luckily somehow I'm holding on. I feel very lucky, as a matter of fact. I actually remember expecting to lose this game like 10 moves before this position here. Here it's just simple. Like if g7 and then queen e6. And now it's just cleanup time. Yeah, so why did I play this like knight maneuver? I had no idea. Feel like I would never do that if I were in better form. Like instead I would just go king d8 instead. I have no idea why I did that. Maybe I wanted to like, well, maybe I wanted to stop g5 or something like that, and then after d5 I saw that he can go d6, and that compelled me to go knight c8. I think that's what happened. But what is the takeaway of this game? I don't know, like, uh, the opening was a little bit rough for me, but he kind of made maybe like 10 micro inaccuracies that slowly gave me a winning position. Except c4 is just making my life easier. That's a critical mistake for him. He probably just he he just doesn't understand maybe that he needs to think about moves on the king side. But b4 is a good move here, I think, because of b3. And if knight here, oh sorry, after like queen a4, if knight goes here, then yeah, this b7 pawn's dangerous, but also I just think like it's like the queen side is more dangerous this way, just in general. Like it's harder to defend the king side and the queen side in simultaneous. Yeah, after c4, like I break through in a way that his queen side is a little bit weakened. Alright, so I think we can move on to the next game. So I end this game with white, a5, a6. I play b6. After knight c6, I go e5 because I want to develop naturally, but also I want to keep the c5 pawn like solid. I don't want to weaken the c5 pawn. By the way, in the start position, like the most popular moves are d5 and e5, but e5 is probably more popular at the top level because d5 weakens c5 and e5 keeps c5 strong. However, e5 does not weaken f5 because the asymmetrical location of the king and queen matter, and that's why d5 weakens c5, but e5 does not weaken f5 because a queen on d8 can either like slide to a8 or maybe go queen a5 without a white pawn on b4. So weakening c5 actually matters a lot. Anyway, here e4. Okay, well, I just take on c7, take on d6, and I have a much better position already. I mean, what he really needs to do is either play d6 without e6 or play e6 without d6, I think. And here engine wants f6, but that looks weird. But what would I do with black? I'm not too sure. Knight e7 comes to mind, but I don't know what I'm doing here after d5. I think d6 is the way to go here. And then maybe take here or something. And then e6. That looks reasonable for black. Like, black can try to build some sort of unique fortress, and it's not so clear. These positions are not so clear in general. And they're not, like, deeply analyzed. Like, they're kind of unexplored positions, so I don't really have too much to say about them, but I think it's an opening where the better player or the more lucky player wins, I guess. Alright, so e5, e6, e4, d6. Yeah, here I just take these pawns for free and I'm just basically winning already. fe6 is nice so that he can't take on f5 and weaken my center a little bit. Here h5, stopping h5, knight e7, knight g6 ideas. And then the rest is simple development, really. I don't think f5's a blunder. I think it's okay. It's true that he can take here, but okay, I mean, it still looks good for white in my opinion. But, I mean, you do have to think about e4 running into queen f4. That's probably why f5 is not so precise. So I can start with c5 and then eventually play f5 at the right time. Anyway, f5 is fine, I guess. And then I just have very simple development, and there's nothing that black can really do anymore. I mean, I just keep pushing. Now here is very important to, well, I play d6, which is good, but the important thing to know for white is that you need to push the f and e pawns in the correct order. And I played it in the correct order. So f6 is good, but don't like play f5 necessarily. It actually turns out to be good, but it's simpler to start with e5 so that you can play e4 to protect f5 for pushing f5. If you push f6 first, then it feels a little bit harder to push e5. But anyway, white is still winning either way in this case. e5, e4, f5, and I just keep pushing. So g3. Now, if the rook moves back, then h4 comes. And I do the same on the other side. If the rook moves back, then a4 comes. So I just keep pushing. f6 eventually. And steamrolling. c6 is nice because I want to deflect some pieces so that I can push e6 and checkmate with e7. So bc5, bc6, e6, he takes on f7, so that I have to take with one of these pawns, but it's just futile. Now I create like what I call a snowboard, or you could call it like I don't know, a sledding board, a snowboard, a sledge. I don't know. A snowboard is a natural name. Whenever you have a snowboard, I mean, the game is just over for black. So black resigns, and that concludes this match. So what are the takeaways? I mean, we saw something different in every single game. I mean, uh, Horde Supervisor and we both kind of play different every game, just kind of surprise each other a little bit, or try to learn from our own games that we play by expanding our horizons. So it's hard to summarize this match with a takeaway, but in general, I feel like most of Horde Supervisor's mistakes were based in the opening, like the early opening. Um, I don't think it's an issue with technique necessarily. I mean, everyone can improve their technique, but Horde Supervisor needs to improve his openings. Let's just go through each game one by one to see if there were opening problems. So here there was an opening problem with G4. That's an opening mistake. And then in this game, well, Bishop F5's the main mistake for sure. I'm not sure what this was about. And then in the next game, well, here, like, I consider H5 a mistake, but it's, I mean, I, I don't know every possibility in this position, so there could be some tricks that I don't know about. But I just don't like allowing AB5 when there's only just 4 C pawns, right? But also, if we go forward, like A6 is definitely a mistake because sometimes you can play this A6 move if you want to gambit a pawn, like if they go bishop A6 and then they have a knight on D7, for example, so that you can play A4. I mean, in this case, it actually doesn't work for white, but sometimes you can play A6 to play a gambit with A4. After A6, knight A6, there's no A4 for sure because B4 is attacked, and there will be bishop takes B4, for example. Other moves as well. So A6 is a critical mistake. And then in the next game, well, it's kind of the wrong opening plan for black to play bishop e7 and to play bishop b7. Having these bishops here, both bishops are misplaced. Besides, in my opinion, like, this fortress, it might be objectively winning for black, it probably is, but it's just not trivial. And no, white should absolutely not play a5. That would be a mistake. I mean, the whole justification for this opening for white is that white can have b takes c6 followed by b5 at some point, and you need a pawn in a4 in order to do that. I mean, here, like, d6 is a good option for black, or on move 2, you can take with a d pawn and then take with a bishop. Both options are good for black. Both options are preferable over going into this fortress game. And then in the next game, so I'm black here, and I don't believe in h4, but this game is probably like the only game where Horde Supervisor didn't lose because of the opening. He kind of lost because of moves like c4, I guess. But this game is hard for me to analyze, honestly, because black is like always objectively winning in this early metal game by just a thread. And I feel like if variant spot were playing the white side of a position like here, maybe, or here, then I think I would lose as black. So this would be the one game where Horde Supervisor did not lose explicitly because of the opening. And then finally in the last game, like, I mean, going d6 is definitely wrong. So another opening problem. And then, yeah, everything is just so solid for me. And then missing the opportunity with like bishop f5, using the fact that e4 runs into queen f4, but I don't think that's so important. I think the supervisor's problem is with the opening. So, how do you improve the opening? Well, the way I did it is that I computer generate full games. I don't do the first 10 moves. I do entire games. Sometimes they're like 80 moves, sometimes 100 moves. I computer generate these games and then I observe like what's happening in the opening. And then I make some improvements. I fine tune the opening a little bit based on the engine analysis, based on the database, based on like variant spot games or top player games, based on my own like deductive creativity, you could say. Stuff like that. Like I try to uh, build and expand my opening knowledge, kind of concrete opening knowledge. And yeah, by generating full games, like I can really understand the relationship between the opening and the end game that is reached for that opening, because you need to see kind of the full game in order to understand the justification behind some of the early opening moves. But I think that's all I've got for today, and I'll see you in the next video, I guess. Well, thank you.